Hey guys, and welcome back to another Warframe video. Today we're going to be looking at the Plinx and basically comparing it to a Cycron, another battery-operated pistol. So for the first build I have for the Grineer, I was on the Corpus build, I have the Grineer build, which is my standard corrosive and heat that I usually like to do. It has heat as standard, but I have to put Scorch on there just to increase the status enough. 22% isn't quite enough, and there's not really anything else I can really put in this slot to really matter. I've tried hydraulic crosshairs, but without that bonus status, it doesn't proc heat enough to stun them, and I don't really like that. I suppose you could, especially if the enemies don't have armor. Then you could do viral and heat. That would be actually devastating against Grineer, and this would make it a much better pistol. But that's the Grineer build, and you might not like the status on it because it's actually fairly low. See, without the dual stats, it's only 10%, but it's enough to make a difference in the long run. But ultimately, because of that low status, this isn't a great weapon against armor, so it's actually better against Corpus or Infested. And speaking of Corpus, this is the Corpus build. I have hydraulic crosshairs on this one, because with Corpus you don't have to deal with armor for the most part, so you just want as much damage or crits as possible, and this just pushes it over 100%, so you're going to be getting orange crits very easily. So I changed to Viral, and that's just basically it. And it has enough status, because with Viral you only need to proc once or twice. For it to matter, you don't need consistent procs. So the status is actually okay for this, and actually this would actually be great against Grineer as well if you remove their armor. This would actually be basically an ideal build without a river mod. So we have the Viral, and this will attack the health, and it'll reduce the health of all enemies, and it'll attack the techs very well. The heat doesn't have any bonuses at all, and it actually is worse against proto shields. I think it's proto shields that heat is weak to, so it's actually not very good. But and then the puncture will actually attack robotics. So I think robotics have a reduction to viral, but then that puncture kind of evens that out. And then with the hydraulic crosshairs, you're going to be getting orange crits, which do good against Corpus. Now first I'm just going to showcase this against Grineer and Corpus just to give you an idea of how this weapon performs. Now, unfortunately, against Grineer, I will have to actually reduce the enemy level to 100 instead of 155, because sadly this thing just does not have the status to punch through or remove that armor, so we have to go down to 100, which is still basically the highest level you're going to be normally fighting in a mission anyway. Against the Heavy Gunner, it's actually very good, as you can see, because that high corrosive and then the crits. However, up against the Napalm, it starts to become a problem. Now, thankfully I got a corrosive proc there, so now my damage goes up to 1,000. So this should be fairly easy. See, it still took about 3 mags. Now, the good thing about this, obviously, is this never uses ammo. You get 10 shots at a very good fire rate, and that takes a little bit under a second to recharge the full magazine. Now, also, it's probably worth noting that you can increase the magazine so you have more to fire. Although increasing the magazine isn't actually worth it, because even with the Tainted Clip, which is the highest you can really reasonably get, it only adds 6 rounds, and then it increases the reload delay, so it's actually not even worth modding for magazine. And then additionally, the reload's only 0.8 seconds, so if you had a reload mod, it only reduces it by a little bit, so you're not going to really notice the difference. So sadly, you can't really do anything about the magazine or reload, honestly. Maybe without a Riven mod, you're going to have to kind of keep it towards damage or status or maybe crits. Now with the Corpus, I actually will bring it up to level 155 because they can actually take a little bit more punishment, as I said, because they don't have armor. Now once the shields are gone, which is actually fairly quick, the Viral kicks in, and now I'm doing 6,000 on the orange crits. See, that was actually pretty good. And again, this thing uses no ammo. So you're never going to run out of ammo, you just have to have short pauses between bursts. It takes a while to get rid of the anti-MOA's heavy shielding, but once that's gone, it actually did pretty well. So that's actually not too bad for something that is doing viral and heat, especially since the heat basically has no bonuses at all against Corpus. Now when comparing the Cycron, you can tell that the Cycron has perfect accuracy, more fire rate, more magazine, it has a little bit of punch through, has much better status, which is the important part, and it deals innate radiation instead of innate heat, which is actually even better. The Cycron is one of those weapons where it's actually very good with something like the Feldcore with Condition Overload, because you can stack on a bunch of different procs, and then your gas procs will be doing even more, which I haven't done a video about, which I might soon. We'll see. So let's just get that. And the Grineer build, it's basically the same, except we have the primed heated charge because I want to get the damage up as much as possible. And for Grineer, as you're removing armor with that corrosive, heat damage is going to do more and more against their flesh because heat has a bonus against Grineer flesh. So even though the heat is high enough to the point where it's going to offset corrosive procs, you're still going to get enough to the point where this is going to boost it even more. So now sadly this isn't really a crit weapon. I've tried building it for crit. Maybe it's possible with a Riven mod to make it crit worthy, especially if you can get up to 100% status. But this is basically the best build I could come up with. And as for KhorCS, because this thing has more status chance, and despite the fact that I've actually lowered the status chance to only 66% compared to the 84% of the Grineer, I have gas, radiation, and then you see that the puncture and slash are up because I put in Lethal Torrent. And Augur Pact. Now, Augur Pact is there because I already have the two of the toxin mods for gas. So I could put a heat mod here, but that's actually not going to boost the gas procs at all because the actual toxin damage over time is only affected by how much toxin damage you have in the weapon. So honestly, it really isn't anything else I can put here but Augur Pact. But this build would actually be perfect if you had a Riven mod because this slot could be easily replaced with one. And just like with the Plinx, we're testing against level 100 Grineer. We're going to start with the Heavy Gunner. Kills a little bit faster, and because it's continuous, you're getting a lot of procs per second. Let's go with the Napalm. Still takes a little longer, but it still kills a lot faster. So I don't know. The Plinx is pretty good, but the Cycron, after the continuous weapon rework, the Cycron is quite a bit better. And when I actually show you against the KhorCS, you're going to see why. Now here comes the biggest advantage, like I mentioned. Because I can have gas procs, this thing is a very good weapon against KhorCS, and we actually brought the level up to 155 like the last test, but we also have 4 of each enemy. So we're going to, and because this thing has punch through, I can target this line right here, and that second line dies, just because there's so many of those gas procs. This one managed to survive, but then I can just kill it here. So even though this thing it does less damage per shot, it deals so much damage and status procs quickly that you can actually melt a lot of KhorCS. This isn't like I think a kit gun will still beat the Cycron, but the fact that this uses no ammo by default, it is a little better. Now the Plinx does have uses, as you can see. If you remove the armor of Grineer, you're going to be doing so much damage per shot, you might actually be able to one-shot a level 100 Grineer with a viral and heat build, the one that I used for KhorCS. So, and this will actually take a little longer. Although this does have the innate radiation no matter what, so you're going to have crowd control on every faction. It's very useful against Infested to knock out healers. It's useful for KhorCS because irradiated enemies cannot gain shields from shield ospreys, etc. So ultimately, I think the Cycron is better, but the Plinx does have uses. I'd say probably build the Plinx and then the Cycron, basically in that order if you're getting like Mastery rank or something like that, Mastery fodder. So it's not bad, it's just the Cycron's still a little bit better. So yeah, thanks for watching.